Imagine standing in a muddy trench deep in the ground. It's cold. It smells like smoke, dirt, and something worse. Your boots are soaked. Water covers the bottom of the trench. You hear the sound of gunfire far away. Sometimes a loud boom shakes the ground. That's a shell exploding. You try not to look up. If you do, a bullet might hit you. You have not had a warm meal in days. You have not seen the sun. This is life during World War I. This is what soldiers faced every day. It was called trench warfare, and it was one of the most terrible parts of the war. World War I started in 1914. It was also called the Great War. It began in Europe. The war started after a man named Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was shot. He was killed in June 1914 in a place called Sarajevo. He was important, and his death made many countries angry. Soon countries began choosing sides. The war quickly grew bigger. There were two main sides in World War I. One side was called the Allies. The Allies included countries like France, Britain, Russia, and later the United States. The other side was called the Central Powers. The Central Powers included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. At first, people thought the war would be short, but it lasted over 4 years. It ended in 1918. The fighting was very hard. New weapons were used. These included machine guns, tanks, airplanes, and poison gas. Soldiers used gas masks to try to protect themselves. But even with masks, poison gas was very dangerous. Most of the fighting in Europe happened in long trenches. These were dug into the ground. Soldiers lived and fought in them. There was a line of trenches on the Western Front between France and Germany. The trenches stretched for hundreds of miles. Life in the trenches was awful. It was wet, dirty, and full of rats. Sometimes soldiers got a disease called trench foot from standing in water for too long. Their feet would swell and turn black. Some had to have their feet cut off. Between the two sides was a space called no man's land. This was open ground filled with barbed wire and craters from bombs. It was very dangerous. If you tried to cross it, you could be shot. Still, soldiers were often told to climb out of the trench and attack. Many were killed. The war was not just fought in trenches. There were battles at sea and in the air. Ships called U-boats or submarines were used by Germany. They sank many ships, including ones carrying supplies. In the sky, pilots flew early airplanes. These were small and not very safe. Pilots often had short lifespans. Some became famous, like the Red Baron, a German pilot who shot down many enemy planes. At first, the United States did not join the war. The U.S. tried to stay neutral. But in 1917, Germany began sinking ships that had Americans on them. Also, a secret message from Germany to Mexico was discovered. In the message, Germany asked Mexico to attack the U.S. if America entered the war. This made Americans angry. In April 1917, the United States joined the Allies. American soldiers were called doughboys. They helped bring fresh energy to the tired Allied armies. By 1918, Germany and the Central Powers were weak. Their people were hungry and tired of fighting. On November 11, 1918, the fighting stopped. This was called an armistice. The war was over. After the war ended, world leaders met in Paris to make peace. The most important meeting was the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. The treaty said that Germany had to take the blame for the war. Germany had to give up land and pay a lot of money to the Allies. Many Germans were angry about this. Some historians believe this helped cause World War II later on. World War I caused a lot of damage. More than 8 million soldiers died. Millions more were hurt. Many civilians or people not in the army also died from hunger and disease. Cities and towns were destroyed. The war also changed borders. New countries were made. Old empires ended. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and others broke apart. The war also changed how people thought. It was the first time many saw war as something dark and terrible, not brave and exciting. Writers and artists began to show the sadness and pain of war. A group called the Lost Generation wrote about how the war changed them forever. World War I also changed the role of women. With so many men gone, women went to work in factories, offices, and farms. They proved they could do many jobs. This helped women in some countries win the right to vote soon after the war. Today people still remember World War I. November 11th is called Veterans Day in the United States and Remembrance Day in other countries. It is a day to honor those who fought and died in the war. Red poppies are worn as a symbol. They grew in the fields where many soldiers had fallen. World War I was one of the deadliest wars in history. It changed the world in many ways. It brought pain, loss, and sadness. But it also taught people the cost of war and the need for peace.